Our first section tonight is the more noun, the more be, with noun hodo. Now, we have covered noun hodo before, or not noun hodo, we covered verb with hodo quite a few lessons ago, back in Quartet 1, I believe. And this is quite similar, but it's just a little bit different. The hodo that we covered back in Quartet 1 was to the extent that this, some other thing. This one, it's similar, but what it means is the more of this noun, the more this other thing happens. You'll see with the examples, it's mostly just for nouns, but keep in mind that hodo isn't just for nouns. There's lots of different ways you can use it, but this specific one is being used with nouns in this section of Quartet. So, our first example is 若い人が多い町ほどにぎわっている. So, a town with more young people is more bustling. You could honestly think of this as the original hodo that we learned a long time ago. To the extent that there are young people in town, it's more bustling. Like, you could think of it like that, but it sounds a little weirder to say it like that. So the more young people there are in a town, the more bustling or lively it is, would be a better translation of this kind of hodo. And it's a noun, right? So we're describing the noun machi with wakai hito ga oi. So you'll often have adjectives coming before the noun that to describe whether it's, a large amount or small amount, giving some type of comparison for the noun. So a lot of people or a lot of things or a lot of people in a town, things like this one, right? And then we have a verb or something else in the second part that is describing what it is more of, if there's more of this other thing. Now that we got out of the way, let's break this one down. Wakai hito, so young people, ga, they're the subject. Oi machi, so a town with many young people. Hodo, so the more there are young people in the town, or the more it's a town with lots of young people. Nigiwatteiru, it's more bustling or lively. Nigiwao is the verb. The next one is 趣味が同じ人同士ほど会話が盛り上がる. So conversations are more lively with companions who have the same hobbies. Breaking it down, we have 趣味. So 趣味 is hobbies. が同じ人同士. So people, 同士 is like same thing. So like 日本人同士 would be other Japanese people, right? So just me and I couldn't be part of 日本人同士. I would be アメリカ人同士. So if me and a couple other Americans are in the same room hanging out, I could refer to us as アメリカ人同士. In this case, it's people who have the same hobbies. 趣味が同じ人同士. So people who have the same hobbies. ほど hobbies are the same among these people. 会話が盛り上がる. So 会話, it's just conversation. 盛り上がる means to be lively or to, bubble up a lot. So the more people have the same hobby, the more lively the conversations are. よく寝る子ほどよく育つと言われています. So it is said that children who sleep better grow up healthier. So よく寝る子ほど. So よく寝る means to sleep well, 子. So kids who sleep better. So you can think of this hodo as just the ER in, a lot of different adverbs or adjectives. So kids who sleep better. よく育つ. They grow up better or they are healthier. と言われています. It is said that. So と言われている means that it is said that children who sleep better grow up healthier. So you can just have two ERs in the first part and the second part. When you're using hodo in this way, that's another way you can think about this. 有名なアートほどno color. ほど高い値段がついています. So art that is more famous has a higher price attached. 有名なアートほど. So the more famous the art is, 有名なアートほど高い値段. So an expensive price がついています. A higher price is attached. 油が多い食べ物ほど美味しく感じる. So food with lots of oil feels like it tastes better. Or food with more oil, or that has more oil, feels like it tastes better. 油が多い, so has a lot of oil. 食べ物, so food that has a lot of oil. ほど, so food that has even more oil. 美味しく感じる, feels like it tastes better. 美味しく感じる. All right, that brings us to the dialogue. We'll get Yuki over here to read that along with us. Most of you guys have been here, so if you want to catch up on the backstory, go ahead and get started on lesson 9 part 2, which is where we started this, and we've been going for the past 5 sections. So 9.2, 9.3, then 10.1, 10.2, 10.3, and we're going to finish in 10.4, so it'll be a 6-section story. I'll pop this on the website as reading material. But anyway, here we go.
はい、最近家から早く出た時ほど仕事に遅く着くような気がしてきた。俺、 そろそろクビだな。と思いながら帰り道を歩いていた。その時、あの紫の神社に気づいて立ち止まった。あれから数えられないほどこの茜神社を見に来た。でもいつもの有名な大きい赤い鳥居と立派なでかい神社しかなかった。でも今日は違う。
All right, we'll read it full speed here and I'll break it down.
最近家から早く出た時ほど仕事に遅く着くような気がしてきた。
Recently, I've started to get the feeling that the earlier I leave home, the later I arrive at work. So here we have that hodo. 最近, recently. 家から, so from home, 早く出た時. So the times when I leave home soon, So the is from the hodo here. So 家から早く出た時ほど. So the days where I leave home earlier. 仕事に, so in the direction of work. 遅く着く. I'm later to work. That is from the hodo. So the here, the earlier I leave work. The later I arrive at work. That is from the hodo. ような気がしてきた. I've come to start feeling, or I've started to feel like that's the case. ような気がしてきた. I've started to feel that the earlier I leave home, the later I arrive at work.
俺、そろそろクビだな。と思いながら帰り道を歩いていた。その時、あの紫の神社に気づいて立ち止まった。
So I walked down the road home while thinking, I'm probably gonna get fired soon. Right then, I noticed that purple shrine and stopped short. So, 俺, so me, そろそろクビだな. So to get fired, you can use the word クビ. クビ is, it sounds like just neck, right? But it's like this, right? クビ, I'm gonna be fired. So そろそろ, it's about time that I'll get fired. クビだな. と思いながら. So while I was thinking, it's about time I'm gonna get fired. 帰り道, so the road home を歩いていた. So I walked the road home. その時, at that time, あの紫の神社, so that purple shrine に気づいて, so I noticed that purple shrine and 立ち止まった, I stopped short. 立ち止まった, 立ち止まる is to stop short.
あれから数えられないほどこの茜神社を見に来た。でもいつもの有名な大きい赤い鳥居と立派なでかい神社しかなかった。でも今日は違う。
From that last time, I've come to look at this shrine more times than I can count. But there was always nothing but the famous and beautiful Akane shrine with the big red gate. But today is different. Breaking it down, we have arekara, so from then. So arekara means it's referring earlier in the story from a couple lessons ago, actually. So it's from the time that he threw in the Game Center ticket into the offering box and, all his life started to fall apart. So from then, 数えられないほど. So this is a different hodo. This is the hodo we covered back in Quartet 1. I put it in here to contrast this one that we've been covering today. And it's 数えられないほど is like to the extent that I can't even count it. So this is the to the extent hodo. So to the extent that I can't even count it or count the number of times, この茜神社. So this Akane Jinja is the name of the shrine. を見に来た. I came to see this shrine, Akane shrine, more the times than I can even count since that time, あれから. でも, but いつもの有名な all the time famous な大きい big 赤い red 鳥居. So that's the shrine gate. と立派なでかい神社. So and the beautiful huge shrine. しかなかった. So there was always nothing but the big beautiful shrine and the famous big red gate. Super long sentence there. But anyway. でも, but 今日は違う. Today is different.
どんな人ほど尊敬できますか？または or 尊敬できませんか？
So what kind of people can you respect or not respect, and the more they do something?
大変な時も前向きな人ほど尊敬できます。
So someone who looks into the future, or looks forward, or is more optimistic in difficult times, I can respect more.
すぐ誰かに意地悪する人ほど尊敬できません。
So someone who really is really quick to tease other people is someone who I can't really respect. Okay, so how about you? Our next section is to reach with Noun ni no boru. Now, You may remember to reach in Japanese from just a couple weeks ago. It was 達する noun に達する and this is the same, right? It's to reach, but it's noun にのぼる They're a little bit different. So let's talk about that really, really quick. Noun に達する is more of like when you reach a record, like a personal record or something really great happens and you get a good number, or a company reaches a great sales number, or like Elden Ring sold millions of copies or something. They might say 達する. They hit this great goal, or maybe they're the number one selling game of the year or something like that. So in those situations where something really great happens, or you reach a goal, or the numbers just sounds really good, like a million, I don't know, subscribers or something like that. When you reach those kind of numbers, you go with 達する. のぼる, noun にのぼる doesn't necessarily have that positive sense to it. So for example, if you were describing the number of deaths that occurred in a natural disaster, you would not want to use に達する because 達する is for generally positive things and like a world record or something great that happened. You wouldn't want to be using that. It would sort of feel weird. Some people might feel like it's okay, but in general, I think that it would be kind of weird to use 達する with something like that. But you could use にのぼる in situations like that. And we actually do have a sentence in this lesson that is something like that. Noun にのぼる, it can be like things that are just building up over time and talking about what we've reached at this point. It doesn't necessarily need to be a record. It doesn't have to be finished. It might still be growing, and we've just reached this point right now. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a big number, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be a positive thing. So it's a little bit more general, this noun にのぼる than 達する is. So let's jump into the example sentences. The first one is 2013年の65歳以上の人口は日本が世界一で割合は 40% に上った. So as for the population of 65 and overs in 2013, Japan was number one in the world, and the percentage in Japan reached 40%. Not necessarily a positive percentage here, but you probably could use 達する in this situation, but you can also use nounにのぼる. So you can use them interchangeably in some situations. There's just some that you wouldn't want to use 達する in. And in those situations, you could use のぼる. All right, so breaking this one down, it's 2013年の65歳以上の人口. So the population of over 65-year-olds in 2013 wa, and that's the topic, emphasizing what comes next. 日本が, so Japan, they're the subject. 世界一, they were the number one in the world. で, and 割合, so the percentage was は 40% に上った. So it reached 40%. アイルランドの一人当たりの摂取カロリーは世界一で1日平均は3839キロカロリーに上る. So the individual calorie intake in Ireland is number one in the world, and on average it reaches 3,839 kcals per day. I definitely would have expected that number to be in America's pocket easily, but apparently not. Apparently the number one in the world calorie intake is in Ireland. So アイルランドの一人当たりの摂取カロリー. So the calories intake by the one person, 一人当たり is no in Ireland. So アイルランドの一人当たりの摂取カロリーは that's the topic emphasizing what comes next. 世界一で so they're number one in the world, and 一日 in one day 平均 so the average is は3839 kcal に上る. So it reaches an average of 3,839 calories per day.
kcal はキロカロリーと読みます。
そうなんですか。はい。ユニコードに加えられている絵文字の数は3600字以上に上る. So the emoji or emoji included in Unicode reach more than 3,600 characters. And they're still growing. They haven't reached that number, and that's it. That's the record. That's where we're sticking with. They may still be growing, and they keep growing every day or every month or every year. So we are using ni noboru here. So breaking it down, we have Unicode ni, so in the direction of Unicode, 加えられている, so included in Unicode. Emoji, so the emoji included in Unicode の数. So the amount of emoji included in Unicode is 3600字, so 3,600 characters 以上. So more than 3,600 characters に上る. It's reached more than 3,600 characters. 鬼滅の刃は幼稚園児たちの話題にも上る人気さだ. So the popularity of Demon Slayer is such that it even reaches kindergartners as a topic. So translating this one literally would sound a little bit weird in English, so I was a little bit free with my translation, but let's break it down. We have Kimetsu no Yaiba, so that's a Demon Slayer. That's the topic. 幼稚園児たち, so kids in kindergarten. 幼稚園児たちの話題, so it's a topic or a topic among kindergarteners. Nimo, so in their direction also, noboru. So it reaches as a topic among kindergarteners as well, ninkisada. So its popularity is such that it reaches kindergarteners as a topic. So ni noboru can also be used in this situation, not just with numbers, although Quartet is basically only covering numbers in this lesson. It can also be used to mean that it reaches, a group as a topic or something like that. So there are situations like that as well. 会社の会議でインフレーションのことが議題に上った. So here's another one like that. In the company meeting, the topic of inflation was brought up for discussion. So brought up in a conversation. That can be another way that you're using noboru. 議題に上る. 議題に上る is actually a phrase or an expression that means bring up for discussion. So that's something to keep in mind here. So 会社の会議で, so in a meeting at the company, インフレーションのこと, so the thing or the fact or the thing which is inflation が, that's the subject, 議題に上った, so it was brought up for destruction. So に上る can also be used in some expressions like this. 2021年の日本の出生数は78万人に上ったが、2020年の84万人にさえ達していないため、少子化が明らかである. Okay, this is a mouthful, but we have the number of births in Japan in 2021 reached 780,000. But due to not even reaching 2020's 840,000 births, it is clear that there is a declining birth rate. 2021年の日本の出生数. So the number of births, 出生 is births, number of births, 出生数, number of births in Japan in 2021. Wow, that's a topic. 78万人. So 780,000に上った. So it reached 780,000. But が2020年の84万人にさえ達していないため 2020's 840,000 people, and that's births, にさえ, so even in that direction, 達していないため, so the fact that it hasn't even reached 844,000 births from 2020, 少子化 is declining birth rate が明らかである. It's clear that there is a declining birth rate.
今年の遅刻した回数が13回以上に上っていたが、クビになるかもしれないという心配はすでに消え去っていた。左右を見ず、道を走って渡った。今思えば、車にひかれなかったことが、俺の運が変わってきたサインだったかもしれない。紫の茜神社じゃない茜神社の前にたどり着くと、轟音のような鐘の音が耳に響いた。
Alright, we'll go full speed and I'll break it down.
今年の遅刻した回数が13回以上に上っていたが、クビになるかもしれないという心配はすでに消え去っていた。左右を見ず、道を走って渡った。
Hey, the worry about how the number of times I was late to work had reached over 13 times this year, and I was probably going to get fired, vanished. Without looking left or right, I ran across the road. So breaking it down, it's 今年の遅刻した回数. So the amount of times I was late this year. が, that's the subject, 13回以上に上っていたが, it had reached over 13 times, but が、クビになるかもしれない. So possibly get fired. という心配. So the fear that I might possibly get fired は、すでに already 消え去った. It disappeared. 消え去っていた. Sorry. 左右を見ず so without looking left or right 道を走って渡った I ran across the road
今思えば車にひかれなかったことが俺の運が変わってきたサインだったかもしれない。紫の茜神社じゃない茜神社の前にたどり着くと轟音のような鐘の音が耳に響いた。
If I think about it now, the fact that I didn't get hit by a car might have been a sign that my fortunes were changing. When I arrived in front of the purple Akane shrine, which was not Akane shrine, the thunderous roar of a bell echoed in my ears. So, 今思えば, if I were to think about it now, 今思えば, 車にひかれなかったこと. So the fact that I didn't get hit, 車にひかれる means to be hit by a car. 車にひかれなかったことが. So the fact that I didn't get hit by a car, and that's the subject here. The fact that I wasn't hit by a car. 俺の運, so my luck, が変わってきた. So it came to change. Sign. So it was a sign that my luck had come to change. だったかもしれない. It was possibly a sign that my luck had come to change. 紫の, so the purple, 茜神社じゃない茜神社の前. So in front of the 茜神社 that was not 茜神社にたどり着くと when I arrived at the front of 茜神社 that was not 茜神社と so the to is the when 轟音のような鐘の音 a bell sound that was huge like it was massive thunderous roar が耳に響いた it echoed in my ears. So like a thunderous roar of the sound of a bell echoed in my ears. お願いします。
〇〇年にあなたの国や町にある観光地や人気の場所に訪れている人数はおよそ何人に上りますか？or 何人に上りましたか？
We want you guys to look up a statistic from your country or your town and just tell us how many people have visited a famous tourist attraction in your country or your town or around you where you live in a certain year. It can be any year, depends on what you can find data for. The first example is
2019年に長野市の善光寺に訪れた人数はおよそ600万人に上った。
So you can use this exact format and just replace the location, the year, and the number. So in the year 2019, 善光寺 in Nagano City に訪れた人数 so the number of people who visited 善光寺 in Nagano in 2019 was approximately およそ600万人に上った It reached approximately 600 man, so 6 million people. The next one is
2021年の富士山に登った人数は78,548人に上る。
So this is the same pattern, right? We've just replaced the year with 2021. The location from Nagano-shi no Zenkoji, we replace it with Fujisan ni nobotta ninzu. So the number of people who climbed Fujisan は78,548人. So 78,548 people にnoboru. It will reach that many. So you would say this if you were in 2021. If you want to talk about the past, which I guess this is, you could put it in the past tense. If you're talking about this year, you put noboru in the present tense. But we wrote this sentence from the viewpoint of 2021. All right, our next section is while with tsutsu. Well, we've already covered while with nagara, but this is while with tsutsu. There's many different ways to say what you would think is the same thing, but it's used just a little bit differently. You still use it for while you're doing one action, another action occurs, or you do another action, just like with nagara, but with a slight difference. With nagara, the first part of the sentence, so tabe nagara terebi o miru, or something like that, the most important part in that sentence is what comes after the nagara. That's where you're placing the emphasis. The main action is what comes later. So, 座りながらテレビを見ている. So while I was sitting, I watched TV. The most important part of that sentence is the watching TV part. With tsutsu, both parts of the sentence, before and after tsutsu, are equally important. Both of those things are equally important. Another thing to keep in mind is that you generally don't use tsutsu, apparently, for like daily routines, things you do every day. Simple, things you do every day. And you frequently use it with things that require some kind of thought, like 考えつつ, I made this decision. While thinking deeply about something, I made a decision. Types of verbs that might use you might use thinking with. Some of the verbs that they mentioned were 考える、思う、話し合おう、考えに入れる, and 願う. So to request something of someone. Those are some of the verbs that they listed as being used with つつ frequently. These all take some amount of thought or mental process. And those kind of verbs will often be used with つつ. Things that aren't happening instantly. Things that take a while are another type of verb that you'll be using つつ with. That's a good point, Mountain Pear Books. I actually forgot about that. Both X and Y in つつ are actions that require some amount of time. For example, actions that can't be finished instantaneously. So that is another type of verb that will take つつ. 仕事の失敗を反省しつつ部長に謝った. So while reflecting on my failure at work, I apologized to the department head. So 反省する means to reflect on something. Reflect on work usually, but not always. Just reflect on a mistake or something like that. Obviously, they take some kind of mental process or thinking. So this is one of the verbs that you would likely see with つつ. And we're also placing the main emphasis on both parts. It's equally as important that I'm, thinking or reflecting on my mistake as it is that I'm apologizing to the department head. So 仕事の失敗. So the failure at work を反省しつつ. So while reflecting on 反省しつつ. 部長に So in the direction of the department head 謝った. I apologized. お世話になった先生に感謝しつつ卒業式を迎えます. So while feeling gratitude towards the teachers who looked after me, I approached the graduation ceremony. So breaking it down, we have お世話になった. So お世話になる or お世話になった means people who did things for me. Like if you go to visit someone at their house, I don't know, when I visit Yuki's parents, when I visit their house, I'll say お世話になっています or something like that, right? I am under your care or something like that. So お世話になった先生. So teachers who I feel gratitude towards. You can translate it as feeling gratitude towards them. に感謝しつつ. So while feeling gratitude. Gratitude is another thing that's sort of a mental process. So it makes sense here. 卒業を迎えます. So I approach the graduation ceremony. This is not necessarily walking towards the graduation ceremony. It means in sort of a more metaphorical sense, we're moving towards the day of the 卒業式 or something like that. Next example is 体に悪いと知りつつついついポテトチップスを食べてしまう. So while knowing it is bad for my body, I unfortunately eat chips against my better judgment. Alright, so 体に悪い, so bad for your body. と知りつつ, so while I know or while knowing it's bad for my body. ついつい, so ついつい is interesting. It can be used to mean unintentionally or unconsciously, just like this. It can also be used to mean against my better judgment, and that's how I've translated it here. ついついポテトチップス, potato chips, を食べてしまう. I unfortunately eat potato chips, or I completely eat a bunch of potato chips unintentionally or against my better judgment, depending on the context of the situation. Next one is 神社で家族の健康を祈りつつお参りをした. So at the shrine, I wished for my family's health while praying. So お参りする means when you go to the shrine to pray for the intention of praying at the shrine or making a wish at the shrine. So that's お参りする or をする. So 神社で, so utilizing the shrine or at the shrine. 家族の健康を, so the health of my family, を, that's the direct object of. 祈りつつ, 祈る is to pray. And since pray or make a wish is a mental process, that can, make sense with つつ. So 祈りつつお参りをした. I prayed. プレゼントを何にしようか考えつつお店に向かった. So while wondering what I should do for a present, I headed towards the shops. So プレゼント is just present. を何にしようか. So thinking, I wonder what I should do for a present. 考えつつ. So while thinking about what I should do for a present, お店に向かった. I walked towards or headed towards the shops. 楽しいことを期待しつつパーティーに出席しました. So while hoping for something fun, I attended in the party. I don't know why there's an in there, but I attended the party. So 楽しいこと, so a fun thing. を期待しつつ, so while hoping for something fun, パーティーに in the direction of the party, 出席しました. I attended the party.
耳が痛くなるほどの鐘の音を無視しつつ小銭を必死に探った。全部入れろと 鐘の音とともに声が頭の中に響いた。いや、一緒に響いたんじゃなくて、鐘の音自体が声のように聞こえた。今月の最後のお金だった。一瞬だけ迷ったけど、どうせ終わりそうな人生だと思っていたから、思い切って全部の札と小銭を賽銭箱に放り込んだ。小銭が賽銭箱の酸に当たったと同時に、鐘の音が止まった。そして紫の神社があったところに、いつも通りの茜神社が立っていた。俺はパチクリと瞬きをして、あっけに取られて突っ立っていた。
All right, we'll go ahead and read it at full speed, and then I'll break it down.
耳が痛くなるほどの鐘の音を無視しつつ、小銭を必死に探った。全部入れろと鐘の音とともに声が頭の中に響いた。いや、一緒に響いたんじゃなくて、鐘の音自体が声のように響いた。
聞こえた。
聞こえた。
While ignoring the sound of the bell, which was loud, to the extent that my ears hurt, I searched desperately for coins. Put it all in. I heard a voice echo in my head along with the sound of the bell. No, not along with. The sound of the bell itself sounded like a voice. So breaking it down, it's 耳が痛くなるほど. So this is the old hodo, to the extent of that hodo, not the one we studied at the beginning of tonight. So 耳が痛くなるほど. So to the extent that my ears became painful or began to hurt. 鐘の音, so the sound of the bell, を無視しつつ. So while ignoring the sound of the bell. So 無視する means to ignore something. And that's sort of a mental process, right? You sort of have to use some mental effort to not pay any attention to that thing that's trying to get your attention. So you can use つつ with it, no problem. 無視しつつ. So while ignoring the large sound of the bell that was to the extent that my ears were hurting, 小銭を必死に探った. So I searched frantically or desperately for coins, 小銭. 全部入れろ. So put them all in. と、鐘の音とともに. So along with, とともに, the sound of the bell. So と、鐘の音とともに, along with the sound of the bell. 声が, so a voice, that's the subject. 頭の中に, in my head. 響いた. It echoed inside my head. いや, no. 一緒に響いたんじゃなくて, it didn't ring or it didn't echo together with it. 鐘の音自体が声のように聞こえた. So it sounded like the bell itself, 鐘の音自体, or the sound of the bell, the sound of the bell itself, that's the 自体, the sound of the bell itself, が, that's the subject, 声のように, like a voice に聞こえて. It sounded like a voice.
今月の最後のお金だった。一瞬だけ迷ったけど、どうせ終わりそうな人生だと思っていたから、思い切って全部の札と小銭を賽銭箱に放り込んだ。
It was the last of my money this month. I hesitated for just a moment, but then I figured that in any case, my life was already seemed to be over. So I made up my mind and threw all of my bills and coins into the offering box. 今月の最後のお金だった. So it was the last of my money this month. 一瞬だけ, so just for a moment, 迷ったけど, I hesitated for just a moment, but, けど, どうせ is in any case, どうせ終わりそうな人生, so a life that was already seemed to be over, だと思っていたから, so I thought that my life was already over in any case, so 思い切って, so I made up my mind, 思い切って全部, all of it, 全部の札と小銭, so all of my bills and coins, を, that's the direct object of 賽銭箱, the offering box, に放り込んだ. I threw them in the offering box.
小銭が賽銭箱の酸に当たったと同時に鐘の音が止まった。そして紫の神社があったところにいつも通りの茜神社が立っていた。俺はパチクリと瞬きをしてあっけに取られて突っ立っていた。
At the same time that the coins hit the offering box's grate, the sound of the bell stopped, and then, in the place where the purple shrine had been, Akane shrine now stood. I blinked my eyes in dumbfounded surprise and stood still as a statue. So 小銭が saisen bako no san. So on offering boxes at shrines in Japan, there's usually, or at temples as well, there's often like a wooden grate on top of it. And that's generally to keep people from reaching their hands in and taking stuff out, I imagine. But it's very common. So that's called the san. So, 小銭が, so the coins, when they, 賽銭箱の3に当たった. So, when they hit the grate on the offering box, と同時に, so at that same time, に、鐘の音が止まった. The sound of the bell stopped. そして, and then, 紫の神社, so the purple shrine, があったところに, so in the place where the purple shrine was, いつも通り, so same as always, の茜神社, so the Akane shrine, same as always, Akane shrine が立っていた. So the usual Akane shrine now was standing there. 俺は, so I'm the topic now, パチクリと瞬きをして. So I blinked my eyes. パチクリ means to blink your eyes like this, and 瞬きする means to blink your eyes. So I blinked my eyes like this really fast and like, what the heck is going on? パチクリと瞬きをして、あっけに取られて、so あっけに取られる means to be like dumbfounded in surprise, like what is going on?
アズモンゴールドみたいな感じです。
あっけに、そう、あっけに取られて、突っ立っていた and stood still as a statue. 突っ立っていた。Question time for this section.
あなたは今どんなことを考えつつ散歩をしていますか？
So you're going for a walk. What are you thinking about?
夕ご飯のメニューを考えつつ散歩をしています。
So while thinking about the menu tonight, I'm going for a walk.
どのくらいカロリーを消費しているかを考えつつ散歩をしています。
So while wondering how many calories I'm consuming on the walk, obviously, I go for a walk. Right? どのぐらい, so about how much. カロリーを, so calories, they're the direct object of 消費している, so burning. How many calories I'm burning か, and that's marking it as a question. 考えつつ, so while wondering about that question, how many calories am I burning? 散歩しています. I'm going for a walk. So what are you thinking about while you're going for a walk? Thumbs up を攻撃してください. Please smash the thumbs up button and チャンネル登録お願いします. Please subscribe if you haven't already. We really appreciate it. And hit the bell if you haven't already, so that you know when we go live next time. All right, guys. See you later. Bye-bye. Thank you. Planning to use these books to learn Japanese in 2022? We explain all the grammar from these books and more here on YouTube in detail. And on ToKiniAndy.com, we have tons of extra grammar explanations, interactive practice exercises with Yuki and I, native shadowing exercises so you can get practice speaking even when you're by yourself, tests, and even progress bars to track your progress through the book. We also plan on beginning to add tons of level-appropriate immersion material throughout 2022. We even have a new exclusive community for members where they can ask questions, help each other, and even play silly Japanese word games. Over 1,800 people have already utilized the ToKini Andy and Yuki premium content. Join the community today and kickstart your Japanese learning journey.